What's up everyone and welcome back to the MMA Zone. Today, let's get started with Bam Bam believing Jon Jones is the greatest MMA fighter of all time and he hopes to fight him. Number 3 ranked heavyweight Tai Tuivasa is not one to mince words. He's shown incredible improvement throughout his UFC career and is now surging up the rankings on account of his gregarious personality, his shoey celebrations, but really, it all comes down to his fighting style, and he always delivers the goods in his bouts. Tuivasa is on a 4-fight winning streak, all knockout finishes, including a memorable second-round KO of Derek Lewis this past February at UFC 271 in Lewis's hometown of Houston, Texas. With anticipation mounting over Jon Jones' debut at heavyweight whenever it takes place, there's been speculation that he could fight Stipe Miocic when he finally does return to the cage. Tuivasa, for his part, is currently training in Bang Tao MMA in Phuket, Thailand, and recently caught up with JHK of the All-Stars for an interview in which he states how high he rates Jones in the octagon. This is what he said exactly.
Jones is probably the best MMA fighter of all time. Like still a kid. You know what I mean? Like, he can't. He is what he is. He's the greatest. I think he's the greatest. And my personal opinion, yeah, he's the greatest MMA fighter of all time. But if you're a f***ing idiot, you're a f***ing idiot. Like,
Tuivasa goes on to say that if given the opportunity, he would accept a fight against Jones. For Bam Bam, he wants to say he fought the best of the best, and Jones certainly fits the bill. While Jones has been downright dominant in the light heavyweight division, there's no guarantee this will translate into the heavyweight division, where anyone can turn off your lights with a quick strike. Tuivasa has shown that he's an incredible knockout artist and can certainly scrap with the best of them. What do you think about Tuivasa's comments here? And who do you think would win in a fight between Jones and Tai Tuivasa? Beneil Dariush says Islam might be able to beat Oliveira, and he also invites Tony Ferguson for training. Beneil Dariush's name is being thrown in the mix for a potential shot at the lightweight belt, or at least a title shot eliminator. He was set to take on Islam Makhachev in February, but an injury forced him out of that fight, with Islam instead beating up on an unranked Bobby Green in the first round, who stepped in on short notice. While it did seem that the UFC was going to rebook the Islam Dariush fight for later this year, Charles Oliveira missing weight at UFC 274 possibly changed all that. Oliveira missed weight by half a pound and was forced to vacate his title. He beat Justin Gaethje via first-round submission and earned himself a shot at the title that he now vacated. Now, there are some people saying that Islam deserves to fight Oliveira for the belt, given that Islam is healthy and already beat someone earlier this year when the other guy, Dariush, had to withdraw. It also helps Makhachev's case that he's on a 10-fight win streak compared to Oliveira's 11. In the event that Islam and Oliveira are matched up to fight for the 155-pound strap, Dariush says he's a bit miffed as to who he thinks would win that fight, but he does have one guy edging out the other. This is what he stated to Helen Yee about that.
It's not that simple of an equation, so it's really exciting if the fight does happen. Obviously, I'd rather get the fight, but if not, I think it's a really exciting fight. Man, I would lean towards Islam, but not by much, like by a hair.
The lightweight division has always been one of, if not the toughest division of all of MMA, and Dariush has gone through a murderer's row of killers to earn his 7-fight win streak. One guy he's beaten up on is Tony Ferguson, whom he beat in his last outing a year ago via decision. Ferguson recently suffered the first knockout loss of his career and has been vocal about wanting to move to a new team to get a fresh start. Dariush says that King's MMA, his home in California, will open their doors to Tony if he's up for it, and says he'd love to reach out to Tony if he truly wants to be pushed by a team of coaches and fighters. What do you think about Dariush picking Islam over Oliveira? And what are your thoughts on his words concerning Tony Ferguson? Don't forget to take a second to hit that like button and subscribe to the MMA Zone to stay up to date on all of the latest fight news. Booked. Yair Rodriguez versus Brian Ortega for July 16th fight night. A featherweight showdown is set for July 13th as number 3 ranked featherweight Yair Rodriguez gets set to take on number 2 ranked Brian Ortega in a main event bout this summer. The announcement was made by Ariel Helwani on his Substack channel, with ESPN Deportes confirming the bout. This is a Chicano versus Mexicano fight that will surely see the winner get one step closer to a potential challenge for the featherweight belt. Rodriguez has commanded the attention of fight fans for his flashy style and speed ever since he entered the promotion in 2014. Ortega, meanwhile, has gone undefeated in the octagon until he faced Max Holloway for the title in December 2018. He lost his second bid for the belt to Alexander Volkanovski in September of last year. Rodriguez has been pegged as a potential challenger for the belt, but he needs to put together some wins first. In his last 5 fights, he's lost twice, won twice, and had a no contest against Jeremy Stephens due to an eye poke. Still, Rodriguez is always dangerous and brings a ton of excitement. Ortega is coming off a loss to the champion, but really, who hasn't in the featherweight division? Volkanovski has looked incredible as champion, and there's no shame in losing to him. What do you think about this matchup? And who's your early favorite to have their hand raised? DC says that Conor McGregor likely will fight Michael Chandler when he should be fighting Nate Diaz. In Daniel Cormier's eyes, there's really only one fight that Conor McGregor should be preparing for, but it's likely not the fight that he'll be offered. Michael Chandler made an incredible call out of Conor McGregor after he knocked out Tony Ferguson in devastating fashion at UFC 274 a few weeks ago. Chandler, who is 2-2 in the UFC, he's made big waves with the way he fights, win or lose. He's already fought for a title, but came up short. However, he already beat number 5 ranked Dan Hooker and became the first man to knock Tony Ferguson unconscious. But for DC, Conor should be fighting Nate Diaz. The trilogy bout is still out there. Diaz is reportedly looking for a way out of the UFC and has claimed he wants to fight the last bout on his deal and then retire. While it's unclear if he actually will hang up the gloves, we do know that he's no longer in talks to fight Dustin Poirier, which the Diamond had accepted through social media earlier this year. This is what DC stated in a recent interview on ESPN MMA.
It's a fun fight. We've seen it twice and both of them have delivered. I think it's evenly matched. So I think he should fight Nate Diaz. Who I believe he will fight is Michael Chandler, because Michael Chandler has taken the UFC by storm.
McGregor is still preparing for his return to the cage after suffering a broken leg injury in July of last year. UFC President Dana White stated previously that he knows he can always make the trilogy fight a reality. But what do you think? Do you want to see McGregor return to the trilogy bout with Diaz? Or do you want to see McGregor fight Chandler upon his return? And in both fights, who do you think would win? Chito Vera wants Petr Yan next. Marlon Chito Vera is feeling himself a bit, and he can't wait to get in the octagon for former bantamweight champion Petr Yan. Vera, who is currently the number 5 bantamweight in the UFC, recently beat Rob Font by a unanimous decision after 5 full rounds. The win extended Vera's winning streak to 3 straight bouts, including a knockout victory over Frankie Edgar. Now, Vera believes he's just a fight away from the title, and that a win over Petr Yan would propel him to that slot. Case in point, this is what he stated to the Schmo in a recent interview.
We're right there. We're literally one win away from fight for that belt, so I hope we get it done with Jan. I think that's a path to the belt. Number 1 contender. We kick his ass and we move forward.
Then a day later, Chito posted this on Twitter calling out Petr Yan. Petr Yan out August 13th, to which Yan responded with this. If you want to fight the best, you can wait till September/October. But if you want to just be UFC's and fell out the spot in August, you can off and don't waste my time. In the Schmo interview, Chito went on to say that he'd be open to fighting Sean O'Malley before Yan if the promotion offers him that fight. Don't forget, Chito beat O'Malley via TKO in their first meeting back in August 2020, a fight that saw O'Malley suffer an ankle injury. But what are your thoughts on Petr Yan versus Chito Vera? Do you want to see this fight? And who do you think would win that bout? Michael Pereira tells story of he and his team angering a cranky Francis Ngannou. Michael Pereira is in the middle of a confusing call out of Jorge Masvidal involving his wife going into Gamebred's DMs, but Pereira recently shared a story that took place just after he beat Andre Fialho by decision this past January at UFC 270. It was the same card that saw Francis Ngannou successfully defend his heavyweight title against Ciryl Gane by a decision with an injured knee. Pereira and his entire team were celebrating Pereira's victory in his hotel room, which just so happened to be next to Ngannou's. Pereira states that he and his team were playing loud music and doing a lot of drinking. The party then spilled out into the hallway, and that's when Ngannou, who came off one of the toughest fights of his life with an injured knee, came out of the hallway and asked those guys to turn it down. This is what Pereira stated in a Portuguese language interview. Honestly, at that moment, I felt uncomfortable. It was after a hard fight. My nose was broken, my legs were beaten off. If Ngannou started a fight, what would I do to him? The team is already all drunk. It wouldn't have helped me in any way. Honestly, Ngannou made me angry. Why couldn't he address us politely? He was lucky that I was all beaten up and couldn't do anything, especially for a guy of this size. I don't even want to think about it. I know he's a modest, nice guy, but why couldn't he tell us politely? Cooler heads prevailed in this instance. But what do you think of Pereira's story? Thanks so much for joining us today. What do you make of what's going on in the fight world? Make sure to like this video and subscribe to the MMA Zone to stay up to date on all of the latest news from the MMA Zone. See you next time.